It's not like I was asking these guys to stand on the edge of a building and jump off. It was just a question that was going to really open up a conversation whereby they were going to be seen. And for those that did it, like I said, it produced an amazing result.
Take Tim up on this. Do this exercise. You're going to reap so many rewards. I think all too often we're so scared. What are people going to think of me if I ask this question? Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Powerful Man Show. I am your co-host, Doug Holt, and here I am with the powerful man, Tim Matthews. Tim, how you doing?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
Doing great. So Tim, the question I wanted to throw out there to this podcast and this forum, the idea of helping men grow, was the idea that, especially as business owners, that we can separate our personal lives from our businesses. So this is a question a lot of men have, and we often hear from business owners is, oh no, wait, if I can just solve this problem in my business, if I can just get to this next financial hurdle, everything else will be right. And I can segment out my relationships, right? Or the way that I'm taking care of myself. So when we hear that, and we hear it often, what would you say to that? What would you say if I asked you right away and said, hey, look, I'm having these problems in my life, low energy. Obviously, I'm probably not saying it to you, right? I just really, it's the internal dialogue. But then I really just talk about business. And and I would segment my business life is one thing and my personal life's another. What would you say to that person?
Interesting. Do you know what came to mind when you and I were speaking about this a couple of weeks ago in Oregon? And we were talking about it being like a mirage in the desert, weren't we? And we were saying, it's kind of like sometimes what we do is, what we see men do is, and, to be fair, I've fallen victim to it sometimes. I'm sure you have, no one's perfect.
I'm perfect. Hardly.
It's hard to live up to, live alongside you. It's a big mantle to live up to. But in terms of mirage in the desert, so what we were saying is it's kind of like destination happiness, isn't it? We're wandering through the desert, we're struggling, we're starving, we're dehydrated, we're alone. And we see this oasis in the distance. And we think, okay, I'm just two more steps. When I get there, I'm just going to do this. Just, come on, keep going. And we push and we force and we struggle. But we get there in the end, only to realize it's a mirage. And the closer we seem to get to it, the further away it seems to get. We never actually get there, do we? And, it's the whole thing of just shifting the goalposts time and time again. And not really taking a moment to be able to arrive at the oasis and bathe in the luxurious, cold, refreshing water. Because as men, in my experience of, working with the men and in my own personal experience, we can sometimes, be guilty, if you like, of, running a cycle of create, conquer next, which is, as achievers, it's easy to do. It's quite addictive to do sometimes as well, because, you get shit done, you achieve things, it feels great. Next thing, boom, 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 boom. But there comes a time when does it end? When does it end? And that's when, in my own experience, you start to feel burnt out and exhausted, and it's just very unfulfilling, isn't it? To always chase something that's constantly moving. So my advice, what I say to somebody in that position is to stick to the initial decision or the initial goal, instead of, as you near it, moving the goalpost, actually just stick to it and enjoy it when you get there. But more importantly, with the type of men that you and I are, Doug, and I'm sure the listeners are, or even, if there's women listening, their husbands, with the type of men that they are, they're achievers. There's always going to be a next thing. So that's never going to stop unless you die, unless you stop growing. So if it's never going to stop, may as well just stop kidding ourselves. Accept that and enjoy the journey as well, rather than delaying the gratification for when we get to that place, because we're never going to get there.
Yeah, well said. And it's so true. And I think as men in particular, we tend to lead with significance, right, as one of our main things. And when things are going wrong in our relationships, and I know I can speak to for myself back in 10 plus years ago at this point, when things were going wrong in my relationships, I would turn to work. I knew that I could pull work off. I knew that if things were going wrong in any area, whether it be my health or not having so much fun, I could put in time and work, and I would get the accolades, the attaboys, the good job, and I could move the needle in business where I couldn't at the time in other areas because I was stuck, right? And what I hear so often from people, and I had this conversation with a business owner, 2 days ago at this point, and what he was saying is, well, I'm very good at segmenting. Very good at segmenting my work life and then my home life. They're just very different. And amidst the conversation that we were having, it turned out that he and his wife were getting a divorce. And he had no energy, couldn't focus on work, and the truth was he was lying not only to me, but more importantly, lying to himself about segmenting. We don't put on one mask. I think you use that term and I'm stealing it from you because it's so good. We don't put on one mask and then get home and then put on another one. It just doesn't work that way. We're all humans. Now you may take your suit off and you take your tie off as soon as you leave the office. But the reality is we're human beings having a human being experience, and the two are tied together. And I know for me, Tim, that if there's a problem in my marriage, right, my wife and I, if we're fighting for some reason, now luckily we've got skills and things that allow us to come back from that really, really quickly now. But if we're fighting, if something's going wrong, then or someone's health in my family, that bleeds over into my business. It just does. It takes over my emotional energy, my thought process, and everything else. And when I turn to business or turn to work, that actually drains me more because I'm not really addressing the problem at hand. I'm really hiding from it.
Yeah. It's so true what you're saying. I was thinking of many instances when I used to operate in that way. And you don't know what you don't know, do you? Because for so long, we, as a society, as a culture of men, let's say, we were taught to work hard for so long, weren't we? There was so much pride to be taken in the struggle. And you know what? There was so much pride, Doug, in the amount of pain that you could tolerate, which, if you think about it, is kind of counterintuitive, because if anything, you want to lower your pain threshold so that you tolerate less, so that you change quicker and you have a higher quality of life. But, in and amongst all of this, two things that came to my mind as you were speaking was, one, the labels. We're not a different person in our business as we are as a husband or a partner or whatever. We are the same man, like you said. And, for a lot of people, and for me, the way I used to be, is it was, okay, well, who am I as a partner or as a son? What does that look like? Because it wasn't a question I really ever asked myself. When you get married, you swear into some vows, don't you? And, maybe I'm not married, so I don't know, but maybe those vows become what you define your role as in the marriage. But also they're very vague and very limiting, and they don't give room for much growth or direction or, just my own personal opinion. But the point I'm making here is, in business, it's very clear what your role is as a business owner, as an entrepreneur. And based on society and, the higher your pain threshold, the more of a man you are, and push and hustle and force and grind, it's very easy by default to play in the masculine energy and, just surrender to that and buy into that and make it work. Whereas then when you go into your relationship, there's still that question mark over, well, what does it look like for me to be a fucking amazing husband? What does that mean to me? And that's such a key point in my opinion. What does that mean to me? Because you can't tell me what your definition is, because that I might take two things from it. You are an amazing husband, to be fair. I might take two things from it, but I may have two things from my own personal experience, from things that I've witnessed from my parents, whatever, that I want to add into it. And it's having that awareness and that freedom within yourself, and also that confidence to be able to ask the question, make up your own mind, and then go out there and be that person. And yeah, I guess to some degree it is a role. You're still the same man playing different roles, if you like. You're still the same person. But more importantly, in my opinion, it's the energy that you'll then show up with in the different roles. In the business owner, it's probably going to be a little bit more masculine for the most part, let's say. In the relationship, you cannot take the same energy, the same problem-solving nature, the same problem-solving leadership, the same analytical thinking into your relationship, because the woman in your life doesn't want to be solved and, worked out. She just wants to be seen and heard and loved. And it's a different type of energy, isn't it, than the harder, say. It's still a masculine energy, but it's a different type. And we're kind of getting off on I'm kind of getting off on a tangent there, but you get what I mean with that, with the whole roles and definitions, and such a key point.
Oh, absolutely. And to be fair, and just so the listeners know, when we start these off, I throw a question to the table, so you haven't had any time to prep for any of this. And the way we thought about this is we didn't feel that there were any conversations for men out there at a high level that were happening. So that was the intent of this show. So I totally agree with you. So from what I'm hearing you say, at that case, would you recommend for you personally that each man listening to this would kind of, Stephen Covey talks about your roles in life, write out what roles they have, like, son, father, husband, that's for me. And everybody's roles are different. And then write out who you want to be in those roles. Is that what you recommend? Yeah.
And you know what? If you're going to take it a step further, what are your KPIs in those roles? And let's just use business terms, because, that's for you and I and most of the men we work with, and I imagine most of the listeners, that's the most common ground. And when I say the KPIs, obviously you get to, these are going to change from time to time. And I'm going to use an example. So in my relationship with Amelia, we have something called the 8 compass questions, and we also know each other's love language. And with the 8 compass questions, it's all around, what do we want our sex life to look like and how does it function? What has to happen to make me feel special, loved, and important, and vice versa? What makes me happy about the other person? What do I like to be done? There's different things. Now, when Amelia and I first went through these, we went somewhere, we got out of the normal environment, went somewhere we both love, somewhere that excites us, that inspires us. It was actually into the middle of nature. No kind of classy, so to speak. It was right into the.
That is classy. That is classy.
Yeah. Well, you're similar to me. We love that kind of stuff, the simple life. But anyway, point is, we went through the exercise. I wrote mine down. She wrote hers down, and then I read mine out to her. She read hers out to me, and we basically asked, okay, how many of mine are you currently hitting? And Amelia asked that same question of me. And let's say it was 4 out of 8. One of the goals then, KPIs, of the relationship for the next 90 days was for me personally, and Amelia, I didn't say I want this to be your KPI per se, but, she just bought into it as well. For me personally, it was to increase the number of those compass questions I was hitting for Amelia. From 4 to 6 out of 8, let's say. And then in 90 days, we'd go somewhere again and we'd review them. Maybe your answers have changed, maybe they've not. The point is, in terms of me knowing my role, is that then becomes very clear on how I get to show up, what her expectations are. And once I understand what her expectations are, I then have a choice, don't I? Can I meet them? Like, actually, can I meet them? Yes or no? Do I want to meet them? I might not want to meet them. Yes or no? And am I prepared to put in the work to maybe, go through my own growth to then meet them, yes or no. At that point, I made the choice. And, point being is, in answer to your question, yeah, I think it is really important that we know the roles that we have within our life and what it looks like for us to be performing those roles well. Because otherwise, you're just kind of floating, aren't you, to some degree? How do you know that you're actually being effective in your living? How do you know that you're actually getting the most out of life? And this isn't from a perspective of enough is never enough. It's from, I want to milk life for everything that it's trying to give me.
I love that. Love that. So many nuggets in there, man. Like, and for those listening, KPIs are business goals, key performance indicators. And I think you use that so well, Tim. Gosh, guys, write these exercises Tim just gave you down. They are monumental. Hey guys, I had to interrupt this show because I want to talk to you about a case study we put together. It's only 11 minutes. And what we do is we go over and show you how almost 300 men have taken control of their life, have already 4X'd their business revenue, and are having more connected and intimate sex with their partner using the activation method. Now they're doing all of this without burning down their relationships and without suffering and sacrificing their health. We want you to have this too. So go over to thepowerfulman.com/11, the number 11, 11, and get this right now. It's only 11 minutes and it's going to show you exactly how these men have done it. All right, let's get back to the episode. So a question for you is, when you and Amelia did these exercises, were there any times that either of you were like, yeah, I'm not willing to do that?
Yeah, Amelia had some apprehension for sure, because, I'm more into this type of growth, if you want to call it that, personal growth, than she is. She's a very aware woman. She's very grounded. She's very emotionally stable. She's very strong, confident, independent, all that kind of stuff. But she's just kind of that way. She's never really done any audio books. She doesn't read. Her passion is dogs, and that's where she grows. Yeah. So yeah, there was apprehension from her side. But the way in which I approached it, Doug, was, hey, do you know what, Amelia? I love you, and I'm committed to, being the best partner I can be for you. I know that there's so much available for you and I to experience together and individually, because the truth is, when we're hitting these compass questions, we'll thrive outside of the relationship too. So when I approached you with this angle of, look, I'm committed to being the best man I can be for you. Can you help me to do that? She's going to say yes, isn't she? So she said, yes, cool. What does that look like? Well, there's these 8 questions that I'd really love some feedback on. Can you answer them for me? And, I'll do the same for you too. So it's a different angle, isn't it? Because I'm not approaching it with, hey, look, I'm unhappy in the relationship. I want more of my needs met, or whatever. It's not coming from the aspect of making her wrong or trying to solve things or making the relationship wrong. It's just about, let's grow together, without saying that. So anyway, she was a little bit apprehensive, but she did it for sure. I think one of her fears was about this making the relationship quite mechanical, which that's why we went to a new environment. We did something we both love. And really, they're just guideposts, to be honest. And it wasn't it then didn't become a case of, oh, well, you've only hit 4 out of my 8 this week. That doesn't quite fit into a number 5 out of 8. It was a guidepost to just be just that, a guide.
Awesome. No, so cool. My wife and I do something, we call it Love Tank, on a scale of 1 to 10, and now we do it 1 to 5. How full is your love tank? Nice. And what does that mean? It's just a check-in, and when saying that, we probably don't do it as often as we could. But it's very similar to what you're talking about, and allows us to, stay on track. And I'll tell you what, man, there have definitely been times where I'm like, yeah, it's going to be a 5. And I ask, and she's like, 2. I'm like, what? But there's also times where I'm like, yeah, it's going to be a 2. And then I get a 5. And it's not, and going back to what you're talking about, it's love languages, right? My wife and our love languages are opposite.
Yeah.
They're not the same. So we have to we get to consciously, sometimes, we've been married for a long time, together 8 years, but we get to consciously you know, think about what the other person's love language is and make sure we're hitting that, because, you know, that's the important thing about that love languages, right? Mine's, you know, when you come to it, and this goes for business too, by the way, guys, love languages happen in business. Business is about people. So you take these same skills you're using that Tim's talking about. If you apply this to your leadership team and to other people in your team, it's about relationships. It's not just about your significant other here. But the same, my love language is acts of service, and her love language is quality time. So if I'm trying to show her love and I'm not thinking about it, I'm doing things for her. Meanwhile, she's just like, why aren't you hanging out with me? Like, let's just hang out. And vice versa. If she's just hanging out with me, I might be like, hey, you know, why aren't we doing something, you know, productive? So you make some great points on that. And I think a lot of us guys can fall into that role of wearing these masks where we think for some reason, you know, our relationship might be not doing well, and all of a sudden business is going to be doing well and no one's going to see through it, right? Don't we all see and know that guy who we know everything's crumbling around them, but they try to act like they have it all together and everybody just sees right through what's happening?
Yeah. I think I've been that guy sometimes.
We all have, right? I mean, we all have. And I mean, that's what makes a great coach is you've been down the path. Now you can see it very clearly and you figured a way out of it. And to your point, Tim, you've developed things like you were just talking about. You've developed so many systems and cool techniques that you apply to men that, you know, not only can you see it so clearly and transparently, it's almost like you look through somebody when you're working with them, that you also bring out their best through these techniques because you've used them. You've been there.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it's a lot. One of the key words that comes to my mind, Doug, is flexibility. You know, as we're talking about the different roles and, you know, the difference between personal and professional roles and, you know, allowing it so they all just don't merge into one per se. It's so key to be flexible with yourself, you know, not apply that black and white problem solving nature that is so useful in business. Even flexibility is super useful in business, of course, as well, pivoting and all the rest of it. But nevertheless, you know, just being flexible with yourself in those areas that are more personal and involving someone that may not be on the same. How do I say this? It's not necessarily the same level as you, but you know, when you're in your company, you are surrounded by people that are all bought into your way, your vision, your thing. Although it's a company and it's relationships and it's people, it's your company. So you set the vision, you set the culture, you set the values. It's your company. People are there because of you. In all honesty, they're there because of you as a leader and the vision that you've created, and then wanting to be part of it. Now, in your relationship, the woman is there not because of that. If anything, she's there in spite of that. You know, she's there for everything you are outside of that. Yeah, she loves that side of you, but I'm sure that she's there for everything you are in spite of your business successes or failures per se. So to give yourself that flexibility, because love languages, they're going to change over time. In my opinion, you either grow together or you grow apart. And if you try and love your partner today in the same way that you loved her 4 years ago, it may or may not work. It's so key to be able to check in with it, to be flexible, to not be hard on yourself, and to allow yourself to just ebb and flow with things. And especially with these roles that you're playing, because one of the key elements in all of this is vulnerability, isn't it? It's that willingness to be seen. It's that willingness to show weakness and be like, I don't fucking know. You know, because in business, in my experience, we don't often really say, I don't fucking know. You know, you're the leader. So yeah, you may ask questions of your leadership team, but point is, you know, they're looking to you for leadership. Whereas in your relationships and the roles that you play as a son, as a husband, as a friend, sometimes it's impossible for you to know what other people want. So you don't know what it takes to be a great son or a great husband. So having that vulnerability, that ability to be able to just surrender to that and be like, help me out. What does it look like? Is such a powerful and simple perspective to have.
I couldn't agree more. And I think there's an evolutionary shift in our society. At least I hope there is. And this business owner I was talking about, you talked to 2 days ago, is such a strong, physically strong, empowering man. And when I talked to him about it, and what came out of it, he felt weak opening up, and I was like, man, that's the opposite. Like, it takes a stronger man to open up. To your point, I think you have to be secure in yourself. You have to be strong. That takes such another level. And every man listening to this, especially if the women, their significant others, are listening to this, definitely know. And I know on my journey, early on in my career, starting a business in my early 20s, I definitely was not strong enough. I had all the business acumen. I was physically strong. I looked the role, the whole nine. But the truth is, in retrospect, is I wasn't strong enough emotionally to show myself and to show what was really going on. And this doesn't mean, you have to go out and start sobbing and, and although there's nothing wrong with it, but this really is talking about just being strong enough to be a leader and be who you are, right? And be who you are and share yourself and talk to others. Mom, what is it like for me to be a good son? Or to your significant other, especially, what is it like for me to be the best for you?
Yeah, it's such a great question. One of the first things that we have the men do in the activation method is ask more or less that question. What is it like to be in a relationship with me? I was speaking in New York last year, and I was speaking on the power of relationships and, being vulnerable in them and how that power carries through into your business. And, and anyway, I made an invitation to the audience, and I said, okay, so think right now of the three relationships in your life that you have the most resistance and chaos around. Who are those three relationships? And obviously, you start to see the audience kind of, getting clear and thinking and looking up, and body language shifts, that energy changes, starts to get a little bit awkward. And I'm right, okay, so now take out your mobile phone. And maybe two people take out the mobile phone. So take out your mobile phone.
They know it's coming.
Yeah, two more people take out. So I've got 4 people now, 4 mobile phones. I'm flying. Yeah, okay, so we're now going to text those people. And you're going to text them the question, what is it like to be in a relationship with me? And they all just looked stunned. They were like, are you crazy?
I don't want to know.
I'm like, look, guys, this is an invitation. You've got an opening right now to ask this question. And all is a question. All that we're doing is opening a line of communication. In the end, anyway, people coming up to me afterwards. They did it afterwards in the days afterwards as well, and it created some amazing shifts. But the point I'm making here is, one, that question is super powerful and it helps you out, and two, how much resistance we create around the most simplest and innate things of all: human communication, interaction. Just simply asking that one question. It's not like I was asking these guys to stand on the edge of a building and jump off. We weren't playing Russian roulette with a gun. It was just a question that was going to really open up a conversation whereby they were going to be seen. And for those that did it, like I said, it produced an amazing result. But yeah, it's crazy how communication is just so many rules around it. So many rules and resistance and, labels. And when in actual fact, it can be one of the most empowering experiences. It has been one of the most empowering experiences in my life personally, but it can be for others too.
I couldn't agree more. What a powerful, powerful exercise. Guys, if you're listening to this right now, which obviously you are because you're hearing me, do this now. Take Tim up on this. And ladies, if you're listening to this as well. But do this exercise. You're going to reap so many rewards. I think all too often we're so scared. What are people going to think of me if I ask this question? And the real problem is, right, on the back of your head, you're a little scared of what the answer is going to be, right? And I think stepping into that fear is a sign of masculinity or just a sign of power in general.
Yeah, for sure. It's freedom, isn't it? It's just absolutely freeing. You know, like yesterday I was doing a Facebook Live with one of the guys that has just experienced amazing results. And, you know, you've been there when he's been voxering me and sending me messages and been on fire and all these amazing, like, life-changing results in his life, with his relationship, with his health, with how he feels, going from being depressed and angry and unfulfilled to just literally being on fire. And anyway, yesterday, well, not literally being on fire because that wouldn't work, but yesterday we then was doing a Facebook Live, and I asked him some questions about, you know, instances, what happened when he got angry. And he was like, oh, I knew you were going to ask that, because, you know, when he's been getting angry, when he used to get angry, he would flip tables, and he flipped tables in the home with food on, where people sat around. He was smashing plates out of frustration. And his anger had really reached boiling point, and it was scaring a lot of people close to him. And anyway, he obviously didn't want to speak about this, so obviously I brought it up. And afterwards, after the Facebook Live, he messaged me being like, wow, that was so freeing to just be able to speak about that openly, you know, not really caring what people thought of me. I feel even lighter now, you know, because there's no mask, there's no lies, there's no more keeping up appearances, because that whole thing of wearing a mask, of keeping up appearances, is so fucking tiring. That's, you know, when you're trying to wear lots of different masks, that's when all your roles do start to, you know, you start to leak energy and you start to bleed energy all over the place. And that's where your roles become really blurred. And, you know, back to the whole start of the show, when you spoke about personal and professional life, and, you know, somebody that's kind of going all in the professional life, that's where you really start to pay the prices personally and professionally. Because, you know, you can't keep up with it all, and it burns you out, it drains you out. You start to feel ashamed of what you're doing. You start to tell more lies. And it's this cycle of shame and sabotage, because then what you do is you often then reach for drugs or alcohol or food or whatever the vice is, in order to try and fill the void that you were creating in your life. So, yeah, it's super, super powerful, is just having that line of communication.
So true. Well, Tim, I mean, there's so much nuggets and information. I know you and I, we're going to say this every time, of course, can talk about this for hours, and we often do. But in closing, you know, if you were to give someone listening to this one thing to take away, just one exercise, one thought process, one thing to take away, what would you say?
It's impossible to lie to yourself, and it's never as bad as you think.
Boom. There it is. Write that down, you guys. Impossible to lie to yourself, and it's never as bad as you think. Powerful man himself, Tim Matthews. All right, thank you so much again, everybody. We will see you again in another episode, and thanks for being with us.